This is Justice Worriers, a podcast where we think about things that are right and wrong in our world and how Christian ideas can help us respond to them. We prefer hard questions over easy answers, and we'd love you to join us in our ramblings. Listen in and contact us using the links in the show notes. Hello and welcome to Justice Warriors episode 18. My name is Andy, and as usual I'm joined by Leah and Jörg. Say hi, Leah.
Hi there.
Say hi, Jörg.
Hello.
And we have a special guest today, Michael. Say hi, Michael.
Hello.
Hello. So we're going to talk to Michael a bit about his life. This is a continuation of our series, Outsider and Insider. And I don't know what the rest of the title is going to be yet because we haven't had the conversation. So we'll see how that goes.
Yes.
So welcome, Michael. It's really good to have you on.
Thank you.
Really looking forward to hearing from you. Can we start by just asking you to tell us a bit of your story, a bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Sure. So, yeah, I was born in Chertsey, so very local to our kind of base church. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember much about the first few years of my life, but I went to school pretty locally, and then I was fortunate enough to go to fee-paying schools. So I went to a local kind of primary fee-paying school, and then onto a secondary one, which was much further away. So I had kind of friends that lived further away, which kind of added to the dynamic of meeting up with friends after school and having a kind of, close local friendship, which I feel like I missed out on slightly at that stage.
Okay, so you weren't staying away at school, but you were
No. So it was a day. It wasn't boarding or anything, but it was so I came home every night. But so it was just I always felt like that was a kind of lacking point in a way.
So you may be a bit like an outsider in your hometown.
Almost, yeah, almost. Except church, which obviously had, and I was, actually, went to drama club locally in Egham, and there was some kind of church people there, and so sort of had a church friend group and a school friend group. So it's always been kind of separate. For me, in that respect. Yeah. So I went to university in London. And so I was in halls for the first year, which is really only about 9 months. And that was cool. I mean, it was London, it was East London. So it was a culture shock at that stage to be in East London and live there and to be in that community, which was very interesting for me. Yeah, and so then I actually didn't actually live there for the final 2 years of the degree. So I lived at home and I commuted to London whenever I had lectures. And so, yeah, I mean, I had made a couple of friends during the first year, but I didn't live with them or anything, so I didn't have a super close friendship or a kind of relationship where I had to see them every day outside of lectures. So yeah, and then I finished university, and obviously I was already at home, and yeah, I guess. Yeah, so in sixth form, which was at the same school that I was in before university, I met my now wife, Ria. So we actually stayed together the whole time, and she went to a college in London as well. So we stayed together all that time, and after university, we got engaged, and then I got a job, and then I worked with Leah for a while, and then I got a job at Samsung, and then can I say that on the podcast? I guess I can.
You can say anything you like.
I see.
I mean, if you say some things you say, I might beep out. But.
No, that's true. Yeah, maybe that.
It depends on if they sponsor us in the end.
Oh, that's true. Oh, why don't I arrange a discount or something for something? Yeah, imagine. No, I could, but if you want, I mean, you don't have to really. So yes.
It doesn't quite fit with our brand, does it really? Listen to Justice Warriors podcast and get 5% off your next mobile phone.
Yeah, mobile phone is really not the brand you want to get into.
Upgrade now. You still have last year's model? Yeah.
Maybe a recycled one.
You're speaking to two Fairphone owners here, so...
Good, yeah. I agree. If I didn't get them for free... Yeah.
Sorry, your brother's got a Fairphone. That's
he
okay.
does.
We'll let you off.
Okay, thank you.
Wow. So you are hyper local, aren't you? I mean, that's amazing. That I think about the different places I've lived in my life, and you've kind of lived in the southeast of England for pretty much all of your life. So you must feel such a strong connection to Egham and Chertsey, and that must. I don't quite know. I can't quite imagine what that feels like because I've never lived anywhere for that many of my years or that much of my formative years.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely feels very familiar. It feels like home, really. Egham. I mean, I now live in Weybridge, so it's further away, but it's really certainly St John's and the High Street. I remember it all when I was a child, which I guess was like 22 years ago, probably when my memory started developing. Yeah, so it's changed a lot since then, and it's and church has as well, which is really good. But it's weird because I meet a lot of people that I was on the student team for a while, and these people are all moving through, and you're like, oh, so you've been here forever? And I was like, yep, kind of forever. And I mean, it's exactly the same. With your experiences, I guess you.
Yeah, because it's quite a transitory place, Egham, in a lot of ways, aren't there? I mean, I would say probably a good half of the people here have come from elsewhere and are moving through, and so that's kind of quite special. I think I'm kind of envious that I've never had anywhere that really felt that deeply like home, where I really felt I belonged.
Yeah, I recently discovered a little video about a local area of Froggy Island here, and you got all the locals speaking about growing up and what it was like in the 1950s. And that was like the first time I actually felt that this was a proper town, like people who do the local museum and things like that. Whereas it does, like you say, it feels transitory. But tell me more about East London. Like, as somebody who comes in from the outside, I know what East London is supposed to mean, and but what does it really look like? What does it mean? What does it feel like to be between these two places?
Well, it's really, I mean, it's very different, which was weird, but not as weird as it could have been. So I am not white, so I am, so I look different to everyone, most of the people that I encountered in this area. So, but I don't actually feel different. So, I know it's probably not even subconscious, but could I actually consciously, I think I make a decision to behave and talk and act as I see others acting. So, I mean, not that I have any reason not to, just I've been kind of absorbing the culture that I'm in. So that's...
Do you feel like you have to make a special effort to be super normal or super the same as everyone else? Or do you think that's just subconscious and you just act like you normally would anyway?
A little bit. So a little bit I do kind of put on a sort of not an act, but I need to assert maybe the fact that I am from here in a way, which so it's not very often, but I feel like people would judge people on what they see first. Well, that's natural. I think it's natural. And then once people get to know other people, then they won't judge them in that way anymore, or they'll learn more about them and they'll be okay, right, now I understand.
It is so. Just back to the East London thing, though. Does that mean that because East London is a more diverse place, that suddenly you found yourself in a very different cultural sorting, that somehow you now belong to that diverse, multicultural, from elsewhere community simply because of your skin color, but actually you were a local Surrey boy?
Yeah. Basically, it was very similar to that. So I have come from a majority white, and my schooling majority white. I mean, yes, okay, some diversity, but not really a lot. So, and then I'm put in this place. So, Queen Mary University. A lot of local people go there because it's the local one. It's very good. It's in Tower Hamlets, so there's lots of people from the Indian subcontinent, from basically from everywhere. But lots of So it's the East London Mosque is 400 yards away. I mean, it's very, very close. So I'm put into this engineering degree class, and 90% of the people there are look like me. So I mean, obviously everyone's very diverse from their actual backgrounds. I mean, you have all sorts of different places, and a majority are Muslim, and they're really, I mean, they're really nice people. They're great, but I didn't feel like I belonged, which is really weird because I may have looked like
that must have been really weird.
Yeah,
because there's almost a pressure on you then, to feel like you belong when actually you're thinking, I don't feel that sense, right? Is that right? Or?
Kind of, yeah. I think people were a bit confused when they first saw me. They were like, "Oh, so what's this about? What are you about? I mean, where are you? Not where are you from? I didn't get the question, but like, oh, I see. So you're, because I mean it's 90% male, probably more like 95% male, and I was just friends with the girls, I had a friend who's from she was white, and she was from the south of England, and she went to a girls' school actually, and she did engineering, and she went to Queen Mary, and we had a very similar story, and I felt like I related to her more than I did to the rest of the class.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it was weird, but I mean, we had some great interactions and everything, but
it's interesting too from a point of view, because I bet that most of the kids you were studying with were equally second or third generation not migrant kids, but second or third generation from a migrant family. So even though you basically had the same story, as it were, from a family heritage point of view, the growing up was so different, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That sort of, they were somehow taught to keep a culture, a certain dress or something, and you felt like, actually, no, I'm a local Surrey boy. I think that's interesting.
Yeah. So they had, I mean, on Fridays in the afternoon they went to mosque, and some of them did pray 5 times a day, and so they had that kind of culture already, and it felt like a lot of them knew each other. Maybe they did kind of grow up together, but yeah, so they all had that kind of similarity, and I mean, I didn't, but it was quite strange. In that respect. Those that die by wearing the badge, they're the chosen whites. Those who died are justified for wearing the badge, they're the
non-whites that justify those that died. They're the chosen whites.
So you talked about culture shock, and something that some people say about culture shock is it's worse when you come home because you expect to feel normal, and then actually you don't feel normal because you've been away. And I wonder whether that was a weird experience for you, not because you were expecting it to feel normal necessarily, but maybe because other people were expecting you to be different from how you were. Or you felt that. But then maybe you seem to have described, if I go under the surface, you seem to be describing that you're reacting to what other people are thinking all the time, and I guess we all are. But is that fair? So are you aware of what you think people might be thinking?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Is anyone not?
No.
Well,
Are we not all thinking that?
That's good to know. That's a very high level kind of brain function. That's really weird. And I think there are some people that don't, and I wonder if they have an easier life, or maybe easier. I think I'll go with that. But I mean, I like it because although it makes me anxious, or I don't know, like I'm overthinking things, but when I was younger I used to overthink everything, and it was not debilitating, but it took so much effort that I was just nervous and quiet, and I mean I'm still quiet now. So I used to be, well, still, I mean, very sensitive. So I had all this kind of, and I guess it's normal, but like you suppress your sensitivities until you don't have them, and then you wonder why you don't feel anything. I've been suppressing myself this whole time. So yeah, I guess now I'm finding out that you don't actually grow up at any point. You just have to kind of get through things. Oh, is this too much? Is this too much? I'm sorry.
What?
I'm just thinking you've come on the right podcast. If you have a problem with overthinking things and worrying too much, well, you're in the right place.
Okay.
Yeah. This is really just a therapy group.
Well, I didn't. Yeah, I was thinking, I don't want to turn it too much into therapy.
But I think again, like this whole cultural thing around. So I come from a society where it was completely normal, regrettably, if you're a different skin color, to be asked where you're from, even now. And there's very few multicultural places. But the vibe that, like, I'm really interested in this difference between growing up non-white in Surrey and growing up non-white in London. Do you feel that is so much more in your face when you're in London, in the sense that the difference is pronounced? Is it like glossed over more in Surrey? Is that part of it? So that you felt like, I don't share that migrant identity or that burden that you have perhaps in your difference? Or is it just the Islam question, or where does that difference come from? I'm really interested in that. Sorry if I keep asking about
No, it's great. I mean, so you don't not get asked in Surrey, I'd say, but I think there's a kind of, I don't know what to call it, a sensibility or something, where, I mean, you don't ask. I mean, you just assume somewhere else, and that's enough. But I get asked, and then I would say, oh, I'm from Egham or something. And they'd be, oh, no, but where are you from? You know, where are you from? And then I'd say, oh, my parents are from Sri Lanka. I mean, okay, right. So now we get the picture type thing. So, and I would get that asked more in university, but I don't know whether that's because people are older and it's more interesting for them, or it's just more normal because everyone may have, you know, a brown skin, but they're all from a different country potentially. So it's actually more like, oh, okay, so what? It's almost a kind of, what languages do you speak? What culture do you have? Where can we bond? Where?
What religion might you have, etc.
So what do you? Yeah, where are you from? Would answer some of those questions, and you're like, oh, okay, these people are from there as well. So I mean, have you seen them? You know, it's a kind of like a friendshipy thing. That's the kind of impression I got.
Isn't it quite a different question if other people who may be from elsewhere or are of a minority are asking each other versus if a white person is asking? Because when a white person asks it, doesn't it come with the inference that, well, I've lived here forever and this is where I belong? Am I reading too much into it to sort of say it almost then says, so what are you doing here? How did you get here? Doesn't it become quite a different question?
It could be. It would depend on. I mean, most questions do, but it would depend on the context of why they would ask and where you are, or like if you're intruding onto someone's property, or you didn't realize, or something, or like you're in a a neighborhood that doesn't. I don't really know, but I guess I would say that there's more potential for it if someone feels that they're maybe entitled to live here and you aren't. But I've not had it asked aggressively. No, I don't think so. I haven't remembered it.
I'm slightly reminded of something Esther talked about, because Esther talked about this song running through her life that kind of and she talked about that as a very positive thing, like hearing the song of God's acceptance, or Jesus' acceptance of her. Some of what you're saying sounds to me like you have this song going on, which is almost you're making, which is like I'm gonna interpret this in the positive way, right? and probably sometimes you're right to, but maybe sometimes it wouldn't be right. But I feel like, not that you're like going beyond what's sensible, but you have this great determination to, to give people the benefit of the doubt. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Yes. Yeah, I do that.
Yeah. Anyone who knows Michael will know him as a very positive person.
But there is a deep unfairness that a local Egham boy gets asked the question, and for me it only happens when I open my mouth. And I knew what I was getting into. So the question is not so much whether it's being asked aggressively, but who has to explain their presence. I think that's, for me, the question. Who has to say, I mean, you don't go up to somebody you see who's white in these quarters and say, where are you from? It's not an interesting question because you just get told England or whatever. You don't have to have a story. Why do you have to have a story? That's the injustice for me in a way. Yeah. And I mean, Sherry and I were saying this, my wife who's American, we can just blend in by keeping our mouth shut. That's fine. Maybe, don't quite look all that British, but I don't even know what that would mean. So it's
yeah, that's the blending in thing, definitely. Where I was able to blend in East London, that was fine until I opened my mouth, almost, basically. I mean, so that's
how interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that Esther talked about, it was the kind of burden of everyday events and needing to sort of move past things that people had said and things like that. So part of what I'm getting at with the song that you're kind of shouting to yourself, I'm going to interpret this positively, is that actually that's a burden that you either have chosen to take on or have to take on. I mean, it's certainly a burden that you have to take on, and you've chosen to deal with it that way. Maybe put it that way. Has it ever felt like a burden?
Yeah, in a way, yes. There are certain things. So I attribute it to being overly sensitive, and probably lots to unpack about that. But I really think it is because but I don't know. I won't. Yeah. So it's not ashamed. I don't feel ashamed. It's just. It's probably a hangover from my childhood or some sort of a thing where I don't want to be bullied. So, okay, fine. Don't want to be bullied. So you don't want to be different. Okay. Well, I am different. So what do? I just have to, as you say, I mean, take it positively or turn it around somehow. And I would say that's pretty biblical, personally. I mean, if you try and take it, turn it around, I've found that to be kind of, you can do things with that. and that's fine. But you know, I mean, I get not like I'm not offended. It's just I worry about in case I'm offended or people, because I don't like offending others. So I assume other people don't like offending others. So you know, it's ridiculous. But if people, yeah,
it's like listening to my own voice in my head, listening to you.
I'm sorry.
I saw you nodding vigorously throughout this whole interview, Andy. I wasn't going to bring it up, but
is that helpful? Because you already know what's in your head. I mean, maybe it's good. Okay.
Oh man.
And now you do what they tell you. And now you do what they told you. Now you're under control. Now you do what they told
I totally understand the worry about like worrying about that person might think that they have offended me, and that stresses me out because I really, really hate it when I think that I've offended someone, and all that dance, and I think that tendency then does tend to take the kind of burden onto yourself for things that other people are doing wrong, which seems really unfair. But
Yeah, but people don't necessarily mean it in a bad way. So there's a bit of both. I mean, it's just, yeah. But I've been really fortunate. I've not been racially abused. I mean, there's one incident I can remember. So where I've been shouted at, and they used the wrong name anyway. So I mean, they were just very ignorant. So they had no. They just wanted someone to shout at, basically, and I was there. That's fine, because I mean, afterwards I was furious myself. I didn't. Okay, it was in the car, and they were in another car, and it was a kind of road rage accident. Not accident, just incident. We didn't hit each other, and so. I mean, you probably know the road well. It's it's a 30 zone, and then 40, and then it goes to 60. Okay, fine. So I keep to the speed limit, like, I don't know, rigidly. And so I'm 30. Okay, fine. And then at 40, I would accelerate fast, but I'll go to 40, and that's it. And then I'll go to 60, and this person was behind me very angrily that I wasn't doing 80 or whatever. And so then at the 60 zone, it's clear up ahead, but I didn't know that they were doing this. They come to overtake me, and I'm now going to 60, and I'm trying to go to 60. But I didn't realise. So now we're having this kind of drag race in the road, and I was like, oh no. And I was like, well, I didn't really want this. And so he thought I was like trying to stop him overtaking me, and I was like, well, it wasn't. And so he goes in front of me, and he brakes very hard, and I was like, oh, great. And now, okay, I've admitted I'm a bit angry on the road, so I then overtake him because I don't know, it just happened, and he's not happy about this, and so I think he's now chasing me. Anyway, I forget the full details. We go round and round and roundabout, and somehow he blocks me, and then he gets out, and he starts like shouting at me, and it's like, oh, what are you thinking? I could have my kids in the car. And I was like, I could have had my kids in the car. I mean, yeah, what were you thinking? And he starts kicking the wheel, I think. And then I was like, sir, you need to stop. And it's like, and then and he just, yeah. So he calls me, I don't have any relation to this word. And I was like, okay, this is very, very weird. But he's very angry. And so I was like, I need you to get back in your car, please. And then we can just drive away. But so I was really calm, and I dispelled it completely, and I don't, and so and I couldn't have been more than 19. I don't really know how old I was, and then that kind of ended, and that was it. And I was like, because I really wanted to drive to the police station but I knew there wasn't one nearby, because I thought, would that be a good thing to do? But because you can't call the police when you're driving. But anyway, it diffused and it was gone. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, I wish I got out and fought him or something. But I know it was a bad idea.
Sounds like you dealt with it amazingly well.
Yeah, so it was just weird. Because he didn't know my race at the time. But yeah, but it was just a road rage incident, really. But
Horrible thing to experience.
yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But it doesn't sound like in that particular instance, the race thing comes in at the end in a very contextualized way. If I had done this, I would probably have been called out on, I don't know, a slur on sexual orientation or something. It would
Precisely.
be, it's just like something you get thrown at. So I can understand how that shakes one up, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's much easier to put away than grow up in an environment where you always recognize you're different.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, I used to teach at a university in central London. I got the feeling from some of the students I taught there that was their life experience, that they didn't quite fit, or that they knew, at least, let me put it this way, that their home culture was always going to be somewhat different. There's a lovely video recently on The Guardian too, on, in this case, 3 Somali girls who end up studying at Cambridge, and how totally foreign and different that is. And their home culture, their parents are living, of course, in their first generation migrants, the parents living in a very Muslim culture, different foods, different everything. And now these girls are figuring out, like, who am I in this strange environment? But it sounds like that was never part of your story. Like, you were just a Surrey boy. And you got out road rage incidents, but it wasn't like that sense of, I need to explain or I need to negotiate my home culture with the culture around me.
Not particularly. I think a lot of that is down to my mum and how she's been in England since she was 5. So her culture is the UK culture, and honestly, her story would be much more of a kind of having to explain herself, much more so, and in a way her parents too. But yeah, so yeah, I've been very blessed to have a kind of maybe slightly idealized, but more or less kind of British upbringing, and but certain culture you can't change, so. Just small things. I mean, everyone has that, I'm sure. When you get married and then your cultures are different. Things are just different. I mean, that's just how they are. And you're like, why is it different? This is how I've done it. Or so there's that kind of yeah. I mean, not opposition, but kind of a bit of a kind of struggle between the two people. And it just so happens. I
mean, it happens in any wedding. So for international weddings, you have the amazing opportunity to blame it on something.
Yes.
That's what I did, I know.
So,
I was going to say, one thing that struck me, Michael, was I've known you for quite a while, and I always think of you as a Surrey person, because that's the context I've known you in. And I was... Is surprised the right word? I was really moved when you did those prayers when we were focusing on the Black Lives Matter protests. Because for me, suddenly I saw you quite differently through more it suddenly just opened my eyes to what your experience might have been in a way I'd never really thought about before. And I think that was the effect that Black Lives Matter had on quite a lot of white people. I don't think I'm alone in that suddenly people we know well and don't really think of, particularly in regards to racism, suddenly felt free to talk more about it. Is that fair to say? And to be more open about your lived experience? Or am I just reading a load of stuff that wasn't there?
No, I mean it's enabled me to have more conversations, for sure, definitely. But I mean, yeah. So it's different because I'm not black and I don't consider myself to be not represented, but like it's not overtly about me. But I do find myself being treated differently in certain ways on face value by, you know, just people in, you know, in the shop or whatever. It's just a bit, you get a different treatment because people don't assume that they have much in common with you, which is fine. I mean, okay, I get it. And some people do the same when we say, with gender. So it's similar to that in my mind. In my mind, it's a kind of, oh, you're different, so I won't have anything in common, so we won't talk or something. That kind of thing, rather. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I was slightly more, I guess more affected than I thought I would be, which is weird because, I mean, I see pictures of myself in friend groups and things, and I'm kind of reminded that I'm not white, which is really weird.
Like you don't know the rest of the time.
It doesn't occur to me almost. It's and it's almost not helpful in a certain way because I can quote unquote get away with more things than some of my white friends. So, you know, I can, you know, I want to say play the race card, but you know, you can get away with certain behaviors that some people can't, and that's not that's not always that helpful.
What kind of behavior?
Oh, I mean, there's this kind of. I was chatting with Ria earlier. There's a kind of I can be racist, which is what we called it in childhood. We used to just mentioning someone's race. You know, I could do that, and I could I mean, say that, oh yeah, the brown guy or something, and you could say that, and I can't say that, and that was very. I was like, I don't know. I preferred to be called, at work or something. It's like, oh yeah, the brown guy who works over there. I'd prefer that than, I don't know. That's that personally. Like, because you say that, the blonde person over there, and I was like, that's kind of. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's how I would be okay with it personally, but it's different for other people. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can imagine some future situation where none of this is at all sensitive, and then people can just use normal words and not worry about it, right? But it does feel a long way away. But it would be an amazing situation, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
But in a way, it's exactly then the Black Lives Matter problem that you encounter, that because people are stepping around it, you're reminded of it. So it's not it can't really become your personal trait because it's not used in an easygoing way of saying, well, the black hair person over there or the short person or whatever. Yeah,
you have to be careful with that.
Yeah. It gets very Body size doesn't work either in many ways.
True.
Yeah.
So Michael, when you said, go on, dear.
I was going to say, because that's an argument I've heard people saying, well, actually, the Black Lives Matter protests have set back race relations. So I have a strange Twitter stream which involves lots of right-on climate activisty kind of people combined with a load of plumbers. So you can imagine I get some interesting reading should I choose to delve into it. And the plumber world was by and large, that was the sentiment. I don't know what all this Black Lives Matter nonsense is about. All it's done is set back the relationships between blacks and whites because now we think that they hate us. So I don't know where you go with that really. That's not helpful, but I think there is a point in which by bringing it out into the open you do kind of make it more wounded, and the wounds are there and visible, and so I sort of see a little bit the sentiment that they're coming from, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because I think if the wounds are there and open, then they've got more chance of healing, haven't they? Whereas if they're just covered up, then.
But in a way, it does assume that all the experiences are equal, and I think Michael's struggle is very different. I mean, from a kid from East London, so coming to terms with your difference isn't at all the same. And now you're being put in the same category, having to fight for something that actually isn't really reflected in your experience. And I think, I saw it at the University of London, I saw that too. You have kids that are clearly second generation migrants from one country, and then upper class flown in kids from that same country. And those were two entirely different stories. And and what Black Lives Matter has done, it lumps these stories together because it doesn't talk about power, it talks about race.
So go on, what? Just expand that a bit. Not power, but race. What do you mean?
Well, it identifies people not by their relation to, let's say, an oppressive state apparatus. In certain U.S. towns, yes, if you're black, you're much more likely to have the knee on your neck. I'm not so sure that would be the case in Surrey. Don't know. I mean, that this country in policing also has some interesting stories, I suppose, in any country. But there is this disconnect between people who really feel the policeman's knee on their neck all the time and people who actually grow up fine. And then perhaps on top of that, a certain white class in Midwestern America that also feels oppressed by elites and state, etc. So once you start thinking about power and who's rebelling against what, the situation looks quite different. And Black Lives Matter, for all the good it's done, it has lumped very different things together. And part of the white backlash is exactly that, saying, well, we're also powerless. We're experiencing the same poverty. I mean, fly out of Florida, for example, in like Gainesville or something, it looks like an African slum. And there's a lot of white people in those shacks as well.
So I kind of hope that I can respond to what's going on in Black Lives Matter by hearing more of the different stories that there are, and that can be our like positive contribution to this situation. I wanted to ask you, Michael, when you said it affected you, the Black Lives Matter stuff affected you more than you expected, what was the effect? Was it emotional, or what happened?
Well, we weren't at work, so I think if we were at work, I may have had some more questions. We have quite a diverse team, but I feel like I might be the most coherent of them. Of the kind of diverse in our particular team. Yeah, so potentially I would have had more conversations with people who are white, and that may have led to some more, but we didn't. I mean, obviously we were working from home, so it didn't really particularly come up. But I kind of felt not like on the scale of awkward a bit, just because like I said, it didn't like hit too hard home for me, because I didn't feel like I want to say like deserved to be a part of it, which is weird, but it's kind of how it felt, because the generational struggle that the kind of African origin people in America have had to go through is just awful. And I mean, I haven't had that struggle, so so it felt like I was fully behind it. I mean, obviously it's just yes, right? I mean, you can't say no, but also you wouldn't want to, because it's not the right thing to have happened. But the fact it didn't happen to me, or that I know of my family, that I didn't have the kind of passing down of this kind of the horrors. I didn't have it, so it, yeah. I kind of was like, yeah. I mean, so I have a story of a kind of insider outsider type story, but it's not the one that would be under that umbrella, in my opinion.
It feels like you're describing what Jörg was saying, like being lumped in or feeling lumped in with something that has nothing to do with it.
Kind of, yeah. Which is, yeah.
Well, because the insider-outsider story, especially in Black Lives Matter, is way too black and white, and I don't mean it as a pun. It's just way too clear-cut that you're either or, and that's how we see people's race. You're white or you're non-white, and and that almost demarcates where you have to come down in this issue, and I think that's a real difficult one.
But I think you're right about power, and it's something that if we don't talk about much on this podcast, we should talk about more, isn't it? And I think it is a central justice issue that Christians don't often talk about too much. Where are we? Where am I? Where are you in relation to the structures of power?
Yeah. And religion plays into that because I'm quite intrigued also by, I mean, Michael, you brought up Islam as sort of a very clear demarcation of difference. And I wonder, if your parents hadn't been Christian, what would it be like, if you, for example, were Buddhist? All of a sudden there would be a very different identity that plays itself out that doesn't, would you feel as local? Or are you the person who goes into that place that nobody understands? At least with church, we know what it's there for, and we've been there once for Christmas or whatever. But the other place is then more foreign. Like, do you feel that religion plays a role in that, or not really? Or because I mean, it sounded to me. Sorry, just to follow up. Like, it sounded to me like it was almost your Christianity was a big demarcation of difference in East London, perhaps even more than being a Surrey boy.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to say... Well, it almost goes hand in hand, East London and Islam. I wouldn't say conclusively, but certainly on my course, that's how it seemed. And people from slightly further afield potentially still would be Muslim and would go to mosque, and it would be weird if they didn't. But because they didn't see me go, and I wasn't... closeted Christian. I said I was, and I went to Christian Union, and we had a great multicultural group of us at Christian Union and things, and that was really good. But yeah, I mean, say I was Buddhist. I don't know whether my family would have moved to Egham. I don't know whether my parents would have moved to Egham. I don't know. Would they have wanted to integrate more, or would they have been perfectly happy where they were? I mean, I don't know the locations of where Buddhists meet and do life together, but I can certainly say it would have been different. Yeah.
That is interesting. So I must admit, I came to this podcast with a bit of hope, which was, I went to school quite a long time before you went to school, Michael. And I remember a boy in my primary school class, whose skin was a different colour from everyone else's, and he was poorly treated by pupils and by teachers. So I would be interested to hear a little bit of your school experience, and hopefully I want to hear things have got better in the approximately 20 years that was between those times. But I want to hear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think you'd be. Yeah. Let's see whether I've suppressed any memories. I think. Well, I was different, so I always remember. I remember it's how you the differences are kind of highlighted by people because everyone wants to be normal, I think. So I don't think I was poorly treated by teachers, except in sport because I was really bad at sport. But I think that's just, if you're bad at sport, you get treated
count.
badly. I think, yeah,
That
that's fine.
Yeah. That's a skinny boy story. It doesn't matter what color.
But so certain like peers would tease me and stuff. I don't know whether I'd be more bullied than other people who were weak or were some other defining feature that was meant to be bad. So maybe over emotional or some sort of thing that happened once and that people remember about. But I was fortunate to have some good friends, and I guess I was like friendly enough that people would like me, and so I had a group of people that wouldn't bully me. I remember a lot of kind of it was my secondary school was single gender, so it was boys only, and I remember it was quite cliquey. So you had kind of sports kids and like the nerd crew. I mean, that was me, and like to a certain extent like artsy people as well. So kind of there were just different groups, and people didn't tend to mix until you got a bit older, and then there's a couple of people who did like crossover and stuff. So in the group I was in, which was kind of more nerdy, I was quite insistent on people not like making fun of each other and not making jokes at others' expense within the group. I mean, yeah. Whereas I remember making a point of seeing that other people's friend groups were mainly based on them making fun of each other and then having like either fights or like bickering and stuff, and like yeah, okay, and then it's just like, oh, you ginger short person or whatever, like that would be how it would end. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, yeah, okay. Whereas I really like tried hard to make sure that culture in our friend group never happened.
You like took control of the situation.
Yeah. So I mean, I would be like, no, we don't, no, we're not having that. That's not funny or whatever. If that kind of thing happened, like, so yeah, basically.
So I think that warms my heart, because it sounds like you, in some groups at school, you were an insider. The thing that I remember about this boy, and it could have been any number of things about personality, but I think it was a lot about race, was that he wasn't even relevant to most of the people in the school. It wasn't that he was bullied, he was just so outside that he wasn't really part of what was going on. And looking back on that it was so ugly. So I'm very glad to hear that. That doesn't sound like your story.
No, and I was able to not let that happen, and there was I think I must have made this decision, or I must have prayed about it or something, because there was someone in the year 2 years above me that was like, just horribly picked on by these sport. Oh, I don't know if they were sports people. They could have just been, I don't know. But like, and like calling him names and like, just flicking rubber bands at him and stuff. And it's just like, well, I mean, he's just a person. So, and it was, it wasn't great, but it wasn't stopped particularly. But that kind of bullying stuff just happens. So
like racist bullying.
Yeah, the names were racist, but it could. I mean, yeah, he was nerdy and he was with some other friends, but I think they all were picked on. But then we were in the same kind of like tutor group, and and we were both brown, so I was the his little brother or something. I mean, I was like, okay,
Right,
great,
right.
here we go. But I don't think that ever happened because I guess I have a positive spin to it. So, and I guess I owe a lot to my mother. She has quite a wit when she's bullied, and so I kind of developed that. So what's nice is I was able to outwit people who are like that. That's something I remember doing actually. So that is nice, but I mean it's definitely not nice for some people, and yeah, I mean there are occasions, and honestly I just kind of sucked it up really, because when you're on the bus, I mean that's like a bit of a melting pot, and you're kind of locked in a space with everyone, and so you just kind of there like, I'm just going to exist for a bit and see what happens. And so people come
School
over.
is such a nightmare.
I know. And it's like, it's such a short time of your life, but you're kind of exposed to so much. It's very weird.
It's a very important part of your life as well.
It is.
Isn't it?
It
Well,
is.
and it's half your life for a very long time until you, I don't know, 30 or something. It still is very defining because it's all you know, or the majority of what you know.
If anyone is listening and you're still at school, it does end.
Yes. Yeah.
And generally, you get to university or some place in life where you realise that actually there's a lot of people like you and that you're not all on your own. Because that was definitely my experience. That you're not the weirdo well, you might be a weirdo, but you find a load of other weirdos who are kind of weird in similar ways.
That is very, very true, and really good to find out. It's So I mean, I was called names, and I weirdly I remember kind of owning those names. Like, I mean, it's not a racist term as far as I know, but Shiraz I was called, which is quite exotic. I think it's a variety of grape. On wine bottles.
It's also a town in Iran and an East African identity, Shirazi. So I'm assuming it actually comes from an Indian Ocean. Yeah.
Well,
so it's nothing to do with the wine.
I don't know. Actually, the wine might have a connection there. There's
maybe
some
it's a
great
place.
Muslim wine drinking that's not often talked about. I don't know. So one would have to trace that out. But Shiraz is a town in Persia in Iran today, and it's very much an Indian Ocean identity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be surprised if they knew that. These people, I wouldn't have rated.
Yeah, but labels travel. They do.
Yeah.
We often don't know where they're from, and we pick them up, and it's like, yeah, that person's different or whatever. So.
Yeah. I mean, I in my head it was a bit kind of, like Aladdin or something. I don't know why. It just felt a bit kind of that way, and I was like, okay.
You were saying you owned to that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I put it on my my MSN username at the time. Oh my god, I wasn't actually MSN friends with him, but I put it on. I don't know why. It was weird.
You described to me a whole load of things that you've done, which to me are your way of carrying a burden that you shouldn't have. They seem like commendable ways of carrying that burden.
Well, it's very kind. Yeah, it's weird that I just find it's just part of my life. It's very but yeah. Even when, like, I mean, we don't get heckled particularly, but sometimes just some people are around or whatever, and someone we just finished watching a film in it's only in Staines, and some child on a bike rides past and says to Rhea, "Oh, nice leggings," and I was like, "Oh, he likes your leggings. That's great." And Rhea was like, "No, he's insulting me." I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't know.
Okay, you've convinced us you're an extremely positive person. So I wanted to ask you one more thing, unless other people have other things they want to ask you. So, which is, we've talked a bit about like things you've learned and things you've done in your life, I want to ask you what you think you're learning now, or what's going on in your life, in your spiritual life, in your inner life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I kind of alluded to it, maybe the fact that that it's kind of like when you grow up, you don't really grow up. You just kind of you've lived for longer. So, which is kind of weird that I didn't have when I was a child. I was just like, here I am. So, I think it may just be a kind of personality thing where you are. I mean, we talked about childhood, but when you're a child, me particularly, I wanted to hide my emotions. I didn't want to show weakness. I didn't want to be constantly overthinking things. And I must have been anxious because my mum put, or my parents put a big Mr. Happy, Don't Worry, Be Happy poster in my room. So clearly,
that'll work.
Yeah, I mean that.
Yeah.
I must have needed it, I guess, is what I mean. So there was a time I remember where I would think about a conversation in every way it could have gone before I had it. And then when I had that conversation in real life, it would never be that way. And I was like, well, why am I doing this? So I decided not to do that. And I haven't really done it since. But so, sorry, to go to the actual question.
Andy, you're looking slightly jealous.
No, I just know it's doomed.
But you still do it.
I mostly do it afterwards.
Yeah, afterwards. Yeah, that's fair. But sorry. Go back to the real question. That I haven't forgotten. Oh, being in So where I'm at now. Yes. So I annoyingly for my home life, I don't express very much. So I attribute that, as we said, to what I've been trying to suppress. So I've been able to kind of be more confident and be a bit, more forthright, more, this is how I feel. I've felt like this, and I have a preference to do this. Oh, I feel like this right now. Whereas I've kind of been pushing that kind of preference-y kind of, because I attribute it to kind of in your face. Oh, I'm this, it's my way type thing, and I don't like being like that. But I've suppressed that, or I've pushed that away in detriment to me. So, I've been kind of on a, what I want is okay. It's not bad, and I obviously I worry about all my decisions, which is difficult because then you never do anything. So you have to decide something. So it's funny because I do worry about the decisions, but I don't. There'll be times I'm just like, oh yeah, I didn't pray about this, or I didn't ask God, and I didn't trust God. You know what I mean? I didn't trust that God would make any decision okay. It doesn't matter after all what I did. I mean, God wouldn't. Some of these things are very petty decisions, but they get worried about. So sometimes just going for it sometimes can be good, and I'm learning that really.
That also echoes my experience of learning how to be a person through relationship, which I think shows the deep wisdom in the whole God wants a relationship with us thing, which sounds like just a Sunday school concept, but actually when you understand that we only really become people, or we become the people that we really are through relationships, then suddenly it makes sense what that is. That's not like a little thing like a friendship. It's just something that happens. It's like what we are, or something.
Yeah. Okay.
So I hope that by having conversations like this and learning about a person and their experience, we all become slightly more people, slightly more who we are.
And if nothing else, Michael, you've realised that in Andy you have somebody else who also spends half his time in his head criticising himself and changing his mind and wondering what on earth he's here for. And it's amazing, isn't it, the level of stuff that goes on in all our heads that other people would often never dream about.
Yeah.
And of course, it forecloses the hope that there's a growing out of. So,
no. That's a really hopeful note, because it's like, we had this joke earlier about, you never really grow up. But I think the only type of growing up you can hope for is that becoming more a person, more yourself, and that comes through relationships with people.
Yeah. The more I've been parenting, the more I know where Greek tragedies come from, because you just don't change people, and if you try to, you just reinforce the thing you're trying to change. So the only thing you can hope for is that kids grow up to like themselves and find what the particular gifts and particular idiosyncrasies they have are good for.
One of my kids asked me a while ago what was the best year of my life, and it transpired that I think I was meant to say the year he was born, but
Wow.
Now I can guess which kid that was.
Didn't quite get that one. Made a mistake. But I honestly said, like, recently, however life can kind of be turbulent outside in terms of who I am and how I feel about my internal life, I've become more content, less worried, more loved, more secure, consistently as time has gone on. And obviously it's still very much a work in progress, but I feel a lot less of an outsider to my own life than I ever used to. So yeah, these things do change, but I don't think other people can make us change. I think it's we change because of our relationships with other people, but not because they're trying to make us change. That's the weird paradox, isn't it?
That's really good.
Well, what else could anyone hope for but what you just described, Leah?
Yeah, I'm not saying that I've sorted it, but yeah, I was a miserable teenager. I mean, I know, Michael, you're a few years older than that yet, but man.
Really?
Yeah. I did say to the same child, actually, I said, I just felt like such an outsider my whole teenage and early 20s. He was like, well, what do you mean? So I just didn't feel I belonged. Like, I never fitted in, like I never wore the right clothes or said the right thing or had my hair right or just didn't fit in. That child couldn't conceive of what I was saying, which is great. That was a different one to the first conversation instantly.
Yeah. Wow.
Cool. Well, I want to say thank you, Michael, for a conversation about a whole load of things, but I feel like we really learned a tiny bit about what makes you tick and what your experience has been in various different situations. I hope, I know has made me think about how, it's expanded my mind a little bit. So
that's good to hear.
Thank you very much.
That's really good to hear.
Thank you.
It's been...
Yeah, thank you.
And we may have some kind of coherent thought about how to respond to this in the next episode, listener, but I don't know what that's going to be.
Well, I think it's going to be about race. I learned a lot about race tonight, about the double-faced nature of fighting racial battles, because these distinctions just don't work, and you really need to have a much more honest conversation even than Black Lives Matter about race.
This is why we pay you the big bucks, Jörg.
and the Samsung phones, just to bring it full circle.
So, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Jörg. Thank you, listener. And we'll see you next time.
Killing in the name of
You've been listening to Justice Warriors. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and you can also follow us on social media by searching for Justice Warriors, where warrior is spelt like someone who worries about things. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating, since that helps other people find us. Also, please tell your friends about us in real life. We'd love to hear from you. To get in touch, use the email address in the show notes or contact us via the social media links. Thanks for listening.
Now you do what they told you. Now you do what they told you. You can't